stepped into Atria all the way to my final year, we've had various labs, not just scholastical but also practical. We've had labs spanning from analysis, modeling and design all the way to biomechanical engineering. At Atria, the professors not just teach you academically but also draw parallelism to the real world market and make you industry ready.
The department also organizes conferences and workshops for professional interaction to provide best placement and internship opportunities.
Located in the midst of all IT activities at Marathahalli, Bangalore, was founded in the year 1983 by Dr. K.C. Samuel. His passion for aviation and teaching made him start the first private flying school in India and set up the Aircraft Engineering Center, specializing in aviation electronics or avionics as per ICAO standards. In the past 3 decades since its inception, the Academy has pushed all boundaries to achieve academic excellence and become a one-stop destination for all careers related to the field of aviation, engineering, and management. We welcome you to become a part of a 36-year legacy and fly high with careers in aviation, engineering, and management.
Sangam Group of Institutions, Kanakpura Road, Bangalore. Admissions open for Bachelor of Engineering in Artificial Intelligence and Data Science, Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning, Computer Science and Design, CSE, ECE, Mechanical, Civil, Bachelor of Architecture, MBA. 3 years of Diploma. Call 9606064186 or 187 or 188.
Shaheen Group of Institutions, one of the leading and premier abodes of learning in India. Nestled in a picturesque locale of Bidar, a hilltop city in northeastern part of Karnataka. Shaheen evoked by the visionary icon and chairman Dr. Abdul Qadir back in 1989. Now it's a major hub of academic excellence, touching the lives of more than 16,000 students across the world.
Hello everyone, a very good morning and a warm welcome to the second day of the Hindu Education Plus Career Counseling Digital Conclave. I'm Anuja Ganesh from the Hindu Group and I will be moderating this session. We have had an overwhelming response yesterday of over 10,000 plus who are interested in this conclave. Thanks to the parents and students who are interested in this webinar series. And we would also like to thank our sponsors for making this possible. Our gold sponsors are AMC Education Institutions, Atria Institution of Technology, Insight IAS. Our silver sponsors are Saram Vishweshwaraya Institute of Engineering, Hindustan Business School, KS Group of Institutions, Shaheen Group of Institutions, Bidar, Rajarajeshwari Group of Institutions, and Ramaya University. We should begin our morning session on scope for business management. We have with us Dr. Professor P.D. Jose, IIM Bangalore. Say a few words about P.D. Jose. He is a professor, strategy area, chairperson, professor in charge, New Campus IIMB. He teaches core courses on strategy and electives on corporate environmental management, sustainable enterprises, and understanding corporate failures. He has been a visiting faculty at Cardiff Business School, UK IIM Kozhikode, and Gothenburg School of Business, Economics and Law at the University of Gothenburg, Norway. We would like you to say.
Good morning.
Doctor. Yeah. Good
morning. Anuja, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you, sir. Thank you.
So good morning to all of you. It's really inspiring to see so many people in this program. I thank the Hindu group and the sponsors for inviting me to this meeting, and I'm happy to share with you the little bit I know about business education and how it might help you. I can see that there have already been a couple of questions, and we will address these questions as the session progresses. But I thought it would be useful to briefly talk about business education in general before we get into specific questions. So keep your questions coming, and I'll be glad to answer them. So the first question that comes to mind when we talk about business education, the question that comes to my mind is, do you need an MBA or a BBA to succeed in life, to have a great career? The answer, unambiguously, is no. You don't need an MBA, you don't need a BBA. In fact, you don't need an MBA or a BBA to be in business. It helps to have it, but all the people that you might think of, Bill Gates, Larry Page of Microsoft, Google, Steve Jobs of Apple, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, Elon Musk of Tesla, our own Mukesh Ambani of Reliance, none of them have an MBA. So it's not about having an MBA, but on the other hand, it definitely does help. While many entrepreneurs and many business leaders don't have an MBA, many Fortune 500 CEOs come from a liberal arts background, but certainly it does, and certainly they do take the help of business experts, business management experts to manage their own businesses. So the first question is, why would you want to pursue a business management, business education, MBA, BBA, or anything like that? Let's talk about the BBA first, because I understand that many of you are in the 9 to 12 category, which means you are not looking for an MBA, you are looking for a BBA or a comparable kind of course. And that's the assumption I'm going to take, and that's how I have prepared my presentation. But of course, I'll be happy to talk to you if you would like on other aspects also. So the first thing is, why a BBA? Is it necessary to do an MBA? Absolutely not. Does it help? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on where you do it and what is covered under the program. But by and large, a BBA can be a very sensible foundation for an MBA, because it covers the same topics, same subjects, topics related to, let us say, organizations, decision making. And the newer ones will cover issues related to analytics. And then there are traditional things like marketing, finance, operations, and organizational behavior, managing people. All of these topics are covered, and therefore it does provide a sensible foundation. So that could be a good reason to do a BBA. Or a bachelor's in, BBA means bachelor's in business administration. In some places it could be a BA, some places it could be a BSc. Particularly if you are going abroad and planning to do an undergraduate in business, it could be a BA or a BSc, right? In India, those terms are not so popular for business management. It's getting popular now, but normally we call this as BBA. Sometimes people tell me, I want to be an entrepreneur, therefore I want to understand business management, and you would be right. But as I told you before, if you look at Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Tesla, Flipkart, I can go on and on. None of these guys have been, business graduates, and they have been very successful entrepreneurs. So that is also not a prerequisite. However, it helps. Now, let me tell you about a few reasons why you don't want to do a BBA. The first thing is, people say, I want to do a BBA because my parents and my neighbors are doing one. My friends are doing one. That is absolutely the wrong motivation. You do it because you want to understand business, you want to build a business, you find this world of business very exciting. That would be a good reason, not because somebody is kind of pushing you towards it. Sometimes people say, I want to make a lot of money, and you'll be surprised how many people think so. A lot of people think that way. It's a glamorous job, tremendous power, and lots of money, so I can have the a kind of a very comfortable life. Well, not all MBAs or BBAs make money. You should be clear about this. And if you want to have a successful career, and let us say you want to have you aspire for some kind of wealth and a lifestyle, the MBA, BBA is not the only route, and most often not the route to go there. Often people say that, well, I'm doing an MBA because I want to be in a top-notch school. For instance, I want to be in an IIM. Like you say, I want to do engineering because I want to go to an NIT or an IIT. That is also not a good reason, because today there are really good institutions outside the Indian Institutes of Management and Technology. Also, even within the Indian Institutes of Management and Technology, there are many alternate courses which provide very strong competition to an undergraduate in business management or a post-graduation in business management. And we will talk about some of this if time permits. So what could be the reason that you would want to do a program in business management? I think the right way to think about is you want to improve your career prospects, you want to improve and gain the skills that are required for succeeding in the future. So we are not talking about business, we are talking about what would allow you to create a successful career. And if you can Google, I'm sure you're all very Google savvy. And if you think about the skills that are required to succeed in the coming decades, people identify a few skills There would be, things like team management skills, leadership skills, critical thinking, creativity, flexibility, cross-cultural competency, because global teams, so team working and working with teams with very different cultures, communication skills, and so on. And today in a digital world, we talk about, lifelong learning and resilience. We talk the ability to continue to survive and so on. That's the age of the pandemics today. And we also talk about integrity and so on. So these are the skills. And if these are the skills, several of the skills in terms of leadership, critical thinking, creativity, flexibility, communication, cross-cultural competency, all of these can be developed as part of a business management program. Please, I am not telling you that business management is the only way to develop it. Certainly, there are multiple alternatives, and all of them equally good, and some better than the business management route. But certainly, the business management program allows you to develop these skills, partially because the pedagogy normally used in top schools is a little different from what you might be used to in the, in your schools and so on. So let me just talk about how the business management education is structured, so we have a sense of, what aspects we are talking about. So if you look at business management education broadly, you can split it into 4 categories. At the first level is what you might call as undergraduate programs. So that's what we are talking about today, a BBA or a BA or a BSc in business and management. Or business administration, really, that's more popular. Then you could have a postgraduate level program, which would be an MBA, Master in Business Administration, or an MMS, various names are there. Sometimes it's called as PGDM, Postgraduate Diploma, and so on. But that's a master's level course after you have an undergraduate degree. And they are normally sometimes more specializations, deeper insight into areas of your interest will be offered, in the under postgraduate level programs. And then you could do a PhD in business and management, which would be a doctoral level program. That's the highest level of degree at the moment you can get in this. Now, other than the undergraduate, graduate, and the PhD programs, there are also short-term courses, scores of them, maybe hundreds, thousands of them, offered by all kinds of institutions. And these would be typically called as certificate programs. Certificate programs are programs that don't give you a degree, but you do a couple of weeks or months of training, and then you get a certificate in one subspecialization. It's a certificate in digital marketing or something like that. So these are the 4 categories. I'm not going to talk about the certificate programs. I'm going to talk primarily about the undergraduate programs and a little bit about the graduate programs. Okay, so let me go on to the other part. Some of you might have a question. So what is actually taught in an MBA program, or let's say a BBA program? Now, typically, any business is managed. There are several aspects. We call them as functional areas of a business. So we talk about a business as a function of producing something. That would be the production function. It would, it just does not have to produce something, to manufacture. There might be an R&D before that. Then there is manufacturing. Then there is marketing, after sales and service, and so on, right? So a business really gets some input, some maybe partially finished or fully finished or unfinished products, integrates them all, creates something. So there is what you call as a supply chain management function within a business. So if you go to a typical business administration program, it would cover all of this. It would cover people management, it would cover production and manufacturing, it would cover supply chain management, it would cover marketing and sales, human resource, because people are an integral part of this, finance, you can't run this business without finance, and so on. And overlaying all of this is how a CEO should run a business. So there may be topics like leadership and strategy and so on. And if you are a business that's looking at multiple countries and global presence, then we are going to talk about international business and so on. So these are the functional areas: marketing, finance, operations, uh, you know, people management, strategy, um, and so on. So typically, if you look at any undergraduate program, they cover all of this. So then there's the question: if you cover all of this in an undergraduate program, why should you do an MBA? And it's a question that really kind of you know perplexes people, and I think that's a very valid question to ask. The difference between a BBA and an MBA is a BBA is a first level exposure to these topics. In an MBA, you can most likely deep dive into the topics that you like. As at a master's level, it's like doing, let us say, a BSc in physics and then doing a BSc in, let's say, one specialized area of physics. Sorry, not a BSc, then an MSc in a specialized area of physics and so on. So, while one feeds into the other, there will be some element of overlap and so on, because many people who come into the MBA program are not BBA graduates. It is not particularly a disadvantage to do a BBA. Also, one requirement, and this I think was a question also open up to us today, that do you need work experience to do an MBA? So typically, people who do a BBA already have an exposure to different functional areas, and if they were to work in an organization and then come back for an MBA, they will greatly benefit. One of the things I personally recommend, and it's not a mandatory requirement for getting admitted to the IIMs and so on, but I personally recommend anyone who talks to me is get some experience of a real organization before you study how to manage organizations. Understand how a sales function works, understand how an organization works, how people are managed, how marketing is done, how finance is managed. So, what a BBA will do is basically give you a basic understanding of an organization, so you can enter an organization at some entry level position, maybe as an analyst or a marketing executive or something like that, and gain 1 or 2 years of experience. Then you do an MBA, you will do exceptionally well because you understand the context in which you are required to operate. So that's the basic thing. But these days, everybody is on a super fast mode. So BBA itself has a huge amount of specialization. You can do BBA in human resource, finance, marketing and sales, analytics, foreign trade, banking, insurance, healthcare. You can pretty much do a BBA in anything. So the specialization has now come down to a level that is at the undergraduate level. And this is where the world is really evolving. So if you do a BBA in, let us say, international business, is an MBA relevant? It will still be relevant if you actually choose the right MBA. Otherwise, it may or may not be relevant, right? One of the things you need to understand is that many academic institutions need to attract students, and so therefore they create very attractive titles for their courses. So when you choose to do a BBA, you've got to talk to people who have done those courses, not just go by the title and so on. So you will have to look at the faculty, reputation of the institute, how long they have been there, how have the alumni rated it. These things are all really easy today. Everything is available at the click of a mouse, right? So you can collect that information. Incidentally, also many of these business magazines and so on also do ratings of institutions. Those are also a reasonably good measure of understanding what a good school is. So that's how you would make a choice. Now, when you go into MBA, these specializations still exist. So from finance to marketing to, sorry, I'm repeating it just to kind of get it into your minds, to sales, to human resources, to operations and so on. And these days now we talk about business analytics or digital marketing or entrepreneurship, healthcare. You can go into a whole range of things out here, right? And so it really depends on what you want to do and what your interests are. And that's really what I want to spend a couple of minutes because I was going to speak for 30 minutes and take questions. The first thing to understand that while I said an MBA it will help you get a corporate career, let's understand that business is not management, and so and management is not business. Though often we talk about business management and administration, but really, if you look at it, business is the way commerce is conducted, and management is the way an organization is managed. And not all organizations are business. So, a hospital, a newspaper, let's say Akshaya Patra in Bangalore, which is a not for profit organization, all of these are actually organizations. So, therefore, you might want to think of building a career in management. And I don't know whether you've noticed the distinction. The IIMs, almost all of them, certainly I know Ahmedabad and Bangalore, do not give a would actually recently they have retitled it as MBA, but traditionally what we offered was a postgraduate diploma in management because we believe management is more than managing just a business. Business is only one type of organization. If that's the case, then you can say if you embark on a career in management, you can actually look at managing diverse set of organizations, from hospitality to media to healthcare to consulting and so on. If that is the case, then we realize that we can actually now specialize in some of those disciplines. So that's how now we have specialized programs, an MBA in hospitals or healthcare management, an MBA in media studies, MBA in data and analytics. Even more interesting ones, these have been there for a long time, an MBA equivalent in forestry from Indian Institute of Forest Management, and MBA in, I'm using the word MBA, but many of them don't call it an MBA, they call it postgraduate diploma, an MBA in rural development from Institute of Rural Management, IRMA, and so on. So it's, I think, very important to understand that while we all talk about BBA and MBA, management extends beyond what is traditionally a business, and the best career opportunities today come from going beyond business. Look at this, our hospitals have not enough managerial capability. They only have doctors and nursing staff and care staff. They don't really have hospital managers, and that's a area that's booming. If you look at media and entertainment, there are not enough managers. Even managers, there's not even enough institutions offering event management training. Hotel management has been there for a while, but tourism management, not for profit, that is NGO management, none of these, there are enough courses, or there are not a lot of good courses, and the openings are huge. So therefore you might want to look at performing, doing some looking at some alternate career options, just other than just focusing on what everybody is going to, the BBA. The reason is simply this: the BBA field, the MBA field is really overcrowded. Despite what everyone tells you, if you're not in a top school, getting a good job is rather difficult. And by a good job, I'm talking about a job that has great career prospects and a good salary. So don't follow the crowd. Figure out which areas are emerging, and then try and get into that. Business analytics is a up and coming very strong area. You might want to do that. Now there are some questions people then ask. So how much math should I know to get into an MBA program? The answer is really not much. Of course, there are courses related to operations and courses related to statistics and so on. But if you have math up to the 10th standard, you can actually pick up all of that. Right? Do I need to have a business background in the past? No, not necessary. You just need to be aware. But you have to have a general level of awareness, which is much more than what an average person would have. So open up your newspaper. I think the Hindu has a pretty good business section. Look at it. Or look at the Hindu business line. They're not paying me for this to plug Hindu, but all I'm saying is there's Business Standard, there's Economic Times, there's Hindu business line. Read it. You might not understand all of it. You don't need to understand all of it. Even I don't understand all of it, right? But you need to have a sense of what is happening in the business world around you. And the most important thing, I think this is very important in choosing your career and deciding what you want to do, is be flexible. Don't get hooked onto an MBA or a BBA or anything. Because in today's world, careers are flexible. You can start with anything, but you move on to other things, right? You might be an engineer, then you become an MBA, then you become a data analyst, then you become an investment banker, and you do something else, right? Today, careers are very flexible, and you should be flexible in looking at what you want to go, where you want to go. Second, in the old days, when I was a young kid, you were either a doctor, engineer, and not good for either of these. Sometimes you became a teacher, maybe. And then if you're not good for any of these, then you're good for nothing. That's not the case today. Today, there are you can get into fashion designing, you can get into a whole range of things. And if you look at some of the most promising programs today are not in science and technology, I would think. They are in humanities. For instance, we have a host of liberal arts programs coming up across the country. The schools that you might want to consider. Ashoka, I didn't see a session on I saw a session on performing arts, not on liberal arts. That's why I'm mentioning this. Ashoka in Delhi, Kriya in Chennai, and partly in Andhra, so Kriya. You can look at Flame in Pune. You can look at Asim Premji University, which focuses on developmental studies in Bangalore. You can look at Ahmedabad University. You could look at even, say you want to study, you're still focused on an IIT, IIM. The IIMs now offer 5-year programs. IIM Rohtak, Indore, and several other IIMs offer. IIM Bangalore itself will be offering an undergraduate program in liberal arts in another 2 years. So by the time, if you are in 10th now, by the time you finish your 12th, you probably can come and join us. And there are many other programs of that kind which you can take. There are very good humanities programs in the IITs. IIT Madras has one, pretty tough to get in though. IIT Bombay is starting one, and I think several other IITs have. I have not tracked all of them. So you don't have to do engineering in an IIT. You could do a humanities course. So keep your minds, a little bit open. If your parents insist you must go to an IIT, say, okay, I will go to an IIT, but let me go and do a humanities program, which is really a fantastic program, right? So they're happy, you are happy, and things work out. So be flexible, be open, don't follow the crowd, and the most important, follow your passion. Now, sometimes people tell me, well, I've seen two kinds of students. One kind who says, I want to be at MIT or Harvard, I want to be a heart surgeon, totally focused. Good for them if they are like that. I can tell you, even at the age of 30, I was not quite sure what I would do, right? I'm much older now, I don't think I'm much wiser. The point is that things evolve. And some people have clarity right and in an early stage of their life. That's great. You might not be very clear what you want to do. That doesn't matter. Follow your passion. And if that changes over a period of time, you want to be a photographer, like in the 3 Idiots, you could still do it and be very successful. Today, there's a great career possibility even there, right? So follow your passion, because it's a passion that will keep you happy, not the money you earn. And this is the advice I give my kids every day, that if you're really good in what you do, success follows, money follows, and happy life follows. And that's really the most important thing. On that note, I'm going to stop. I will take questions that you have, and then of course, if there is more time, I can also answer the questions that I thought you might have wanted to ask me. Over to you, Anuja.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really inspiring for the students to really think out of the box and follow their passion, as you say. One of the questions I'll just read. One moment. Just give me a minute, sir. Yeah, this is from Balakrishna. My question to PD Jose. Sir, is it good to enter into management studies after 12th or after getting a functional knowledge at degree level and then look out for management studies? Please suggest.
So, Anuja, I had already answered that question.
Yeah.
I think it really depends on what you want to do. You could do MBA after engineering and you would still be fine. You could do MBA after BBA, you could still be fine. But what is more important, I think, is that one must get at least 1 or 2 years of experience before doing an MBA. Now, our system is that people just do 10 plus 2 plus 3 plus 2 or 10 plus 2 plus 4 plus 2. We just go from school to school to school. The business management education is not like that. See, if you want to be a doctor, you can't be doing all theoretical studies about being a doctor. You have to be in a hospital, right? Fortunately, if you're studying medicine, you get to intern, you have to be part of a hospital. Unfortunately, when you're studying business management, you don't get to be part of a business because most of us who cannot manage a business are the ones who teach it, including me, right? So you have to have a real life experience, which means you should have worked in an organization. Now, this is not a mandatory requirement, but I've been teaching now for about 25 years, and my experience is that people with work experience often tend to take away so much more from the classrooms. So, my strong recommendation is you should work for a while and then come to an MBA program, irrespective of whether you have a BBA or not. It is not mandatory to have a BBA.
Yeah. Thank you. What is the difference in BSc honors in economics at base, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar School of Economics, University, Bengaluru, base university, and a BBA? Which one is good for what stream of higher studies?
Okay, I have to tell Balakrishna that it's a very specific question. I don't have an idea of what is being taught at B.R. Ambedkar School. So they will have to really, go into the site and, look at the course outline. I don't have a view of that, so I can't really comment on that. I would think that both would be fine if you want to do higher studies. What Balkrishna needs to decide is first, what does he want to do? If you want to pursue a program in economics, then don't do a BBA. There are so many good programs in economics, and including some of the institutes that I talked about earlier, and there are others, right? So that would be the route to go, not through a BBA, because BBA would not give you, in BBA, you would probably have 1 or 2 courses in economics. But if you do, let's say, a BSc honors in economics, you'll probably do some, I'm guessing BSc honors would be about 160 plus credits, and over 100 credits would be in economics. Imagine doing some 15 credits in economics versus doing 100 credits in economics. It's a no-brainer, right? So you have to decide where you want to go.
Thank you. There's another student who wants to know, is it necessary to do business? The question he asks is, why should we do MBA if a Chaisela does business?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I wish he had put his name. We should have uploaded him.
Yeah.
But that's what, I would like to tell that student. I think, that's the point that I stressed right in the beginning, that to run a business, you don't need to do an MBA. However, if you do an MBA, it really helps. And the reason is this, actually. When you start a business, it's fine. If you're going to be a chai seller, let's take that example. You don't need to know. You just need to make sure that you buy milk every day and, make a small profit on it. But what if you want to start a tea chain like Uncle Chai or, Tata Tea or something? You will have 100 stores across. Then some other functions become very important. How you manage people, how do you manage brand, marketing, cost, supply chain. There, some formal training really helps. So, if you think about it, some of our, if you look at the Marwari community, they're very great businessmen. This business is in their blood. A lot of people from Gujarat, right? But they don't really, some of them do build great businesses. Most of them don't build very large businesses. They're very successful in what they do. Now, if they want to build a really large organized business like a Mukesh Ambani or an Adani or somebody, they will have legions of MBAs supporting them. So I think you don't need to do an MBA. Also, one last thing I want to say is, even if you look at Larry Page and the guys who set up Google, or Michael Dell who set up the Dell computer company, all of them, after a while, if you note, they stepped back and they took a professional manager to head the company, or they were mentored by a professional manager. There is something to be said about professional knowledge. Don't discount it. But there is something to be, we have to give enough credit to street smarts also, So both are required.
Thank you. How does doing MBA after BTech or BE help further?
Okay, that's a really good question. Frankly, I don't think it helps. I think, what happens in our system is that everybody does a BTech. And then they realize that, I've met so many students who tell me that, my parents forced me to go for, go to IIT. I couldn't get electronics engineering or whatever, telecom or whatever that is. And I got, mining or mechanical, and I hate mining. I want to switch. So sometimes it doesn't really help, right? But that's one point of view. The other point of view you have to understand is that all education improves our ability to think logically and scientifically. And management is also, in a way, scientific discipline. So logic and science really helps. Now, if you have done a course in mechanical engineering and you go and work for Infosys or any other company, you're doing coding or let's say something like that, or you are selling soaps for Unilever, much of your engineering background is wasted. And that's a sad reality. But we live in a world where people are not quite sure where they want to be. So when you are in the 12th, your ambition is to be in IIT. When you are in IIT, your ambition is to be at IIM. When you are at IIM, your ambition is to be, maybe be part of a consulting company like McKinsey or a financial services company like Goldman Sachs. So then people change. That's why I said be flexible, be experimental, and be prepared to be surprised. You might do none of this. I had once had a student who was, who basically told me that she just wanted, it was a he just wanted to be a musician, right? And parents really pushed him to be, engineering and then MBA. And then they said, you got the MBA from IIMB, now you should get a great job. The poor fellow was so desperate. He tried very hard to fail at his interviews so that he would not get selected. And I was very upset. And I had a chat with him. And then he told me that I'm so happy I'm not getting a job because I don't want a job. If I don't get a job, I'll be able to pursue my passion. So, so that's how it is. And I think, I'm sure a few parents are listening to me right now. And so don't force your children. Let them do what they want. And we've had very good examples of graduates from IIMB who have actually who have succeeded in alternate careers in music or in arts or filmmaking and so on. So you want to be an author, you can be an author. You don't need an MBA for that, right? You don't need an engineering degree also. So the point I'm trying to make is that the way our education is structured, we are always forced to kind of move ahead without thinking to some, the best known institution in that category. We are not so well aware about the implications of that. So what we need to do now is, first of all, we need to educate ourselves. And, since your careers are at stake, if students are listening to me here, I'm telling you, educate your parents. Tell them that, look, there are a lot more avenues open, and I'm sure they will listen to you.
Thank you. Does 10th and 12th marks matter to get into IIM?
Yes. So the way it matters is we look at, and by the way, this is not an official view of IIM Bangalore. Let me clarify that. in any admission program, not just IIM, one would look for consistency. Now, there could be a reason that consistency is not there. You can explain that, right? You fell ill during a board exam and you didn't do very well. That's fine. But by and large, we look for consistency. So if you're a consistent performer and you've done well, then you have an advantage. Plus, I think if you look at some schools, also give a small weightage to your performance in the 10th, 12th, and graduation, and so on. So if you think that, well, I will finish my graduation and then I will turn over a new leaf, until then let me relax, it doesn't work really, because it's also, it's an orientation that you develop, a work ethic that you need to have it right from your school days. On the other hand, if you think, well, I didn't do well in 10th and 12th, so my life is, let's say, ruined, that is also not true. You could always turn around, and since the 10th and 12th form a smaller percentage of your most likely evaluation, you have a pretty good case. I've met students who have done really well in undergraduate level, and they tell me, look, in 12th, I was not quite sure what I wanted to do. Now I'm doing well. And if I am sitting at a selection panel, then I would consider that as very positive, right? Because the person has turned around. So your past does influence what you can do, but you can overcome your past.
The next question is, after BSc Agriculture, can I join MBA in IIM for finance marketing? Other than FABM, is it difficult to compete with the students in IIMs?
Not at all. You could join any discipline. See, even if you are, let us say, a BSc in agriculture. For instance, today you have some of the most promising sectors are, businesses are coming up in the area of biology and and so on, right? So biotech or related kind of areas. So your discipline is an advantage to you. I don't think it's a disadvantage. Plus, if you look at companies like ITC and Nestle and so on, they work a lot with the agriculture sector in terms of working with farmers or rural management or procurement or a whole range of things. So I don't think that's a limitation. Is it hard to compete? Well, it's a very competitive place out here. It is hard to compete, but you don't have any particular disadvantage or advantage.
Next question. Is it very important to admit in top B schools for great future and corporate life, or it is more dependent on other factors?
Okay, so let me start by saying that, luck always plays a role. You can call it luck, destiny, providence, all of that play a role. But let me also clarify that, being part of a good institution can give you tremendous advantages. The first is the brand. So when you come from a highly rated, school, then most often people are willing to give you that initial, advantage. You get recruited to a slightly senior position and so on. They're willing to give you the benefit of the doubt and maybe willing to mentor you more and so on. So if you come from a good school, you certainly have an advantage. That does not mean, so therefore you should try and graduate out of a good school. That's a natural advantage. But that does not mean that, let's say, for whatever reason, you don't actually get into a good school. So should you give up? Definitely not, because after the initial advantage your brand brings you, that I think would apply for the first couple of years. After that, it's your performance that counts. And then, it doesn't matter whether you are from an IIM or a lowly rated school. If you are a good performer, you rise. In the initial stages, of course, the brand, the network, what great institutions give you actually very often is a great network of, peer group. And that also, in business networking is very important, not just in business, everywhere, right? So those connections are really important, but you don't have to be disappointed if you're not in the top 10 schools. You could be in the top 100 and you could still end up better than, many others. Sorry, one last thing I want to say, luck does matter. Where you are placed, positioning does matter, but hard work matters most of all.
Okay. This is from one Mr. Rajkumar Kannan. There is a contrast between what learned in school and what is really implemented. For example, every company wants year-on-year growth by pushing products into market and exploit natural resources. In the other end, the business leaders talk about conservation of natural resources. There is a disconnect here. Kindly clarify.
So, who asked that question? What's your
Rajkumar
name?
Kannan.
Rajkumar. Rajkumar, I think that's a really good question. And that's a question that everybody is grappling with. But today, we talk about sustainability and so on, and we are saying that growth need not come at the cost of environment. And you can see many new and emerging businesses are actually looking at that. Best example is Tesla. It's really leading. It's one of the most valuable companies in the world today, and that's built on the premise that the traditional diesel petrol cars will not actually work in the future. I can give you, scores of dozens of examples of this kind. So, and this is actually a very important question to reflect on for us, and it relates to one attribute I identified in the beginning. Traditionally, we talked about business at the cost of society and ecology. Today, we don't talk about it that way. A very good understanding of your business's impact on society, on ecology, including its ecology includes the natural environment, is very important if you want to survive and succeed. And so that's why I also talked about, Indian Institute of Forest Management, or I think IIM Indore has a program in sustainability management, and so on. So those are all possibilities one should explore. Sorry, and is there one more thing I want to say? I
Yeah.
missed this out.
Yes, sir.
Today actually the other part is a lot of interesting combinations are coming up. So I think if
Okay.
you go to Indian Institute of Science, there's a combination of math and biology.
Okay.
Now, biology, when I was a student, was not something that you did unless you wanted to be a doctor. And the biology we did in our higher secondary was just really not very exciting, to tell you the truth. Remember some names and some basic dissection and so on.
True.
But today, biology is the most exciting topic to be working on. Computational biology. Put biology and math together, and if you ask me if I had to completely recast my career,
Okay.
I would do biology and math. So an IISc offers a program like that. It's a very tough program to get into, but it's the most exciting field today with genomics, genetics, and all of that stuff. So you have to look at it that way.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got sidetracked.
No, that was a good option.
Yeah, but these are options to look at. And coming back to Rajkumar's question, so today, business success depends on good governance. Good governance depends on caring for the environment and people, not just making more money.
We'll move on to the next question. This is from Vignesh Prabhakar. There is a lot of ambiguity as per the institutions where MBA must be pursued. Is there really a difference between pursuing an MBA in India and pursuing it abroad?
Okay, that's also a very interesting question. Actually, but Vignesh, that's not the right question. The reason is simply this: there are great institutions in India, and there are terrible ones abroad, right? So to say that all institutions abroad are better or all in India are not good is really not true, right? Some of the top institutions in India are probably the best in the world. For instance, if you take the top IIMs in India, they're tougher to get into than Harvard. And I think the job positions are pretty good if you adjust for cost of living and so on. I think the companies that recruit there and here are by and large the same. So clearly, our top institutions are, I think, really good. And I think it gives you huge value for money, because our MBA here costs probably 1/20th of what it would cost doing an MBA abroad. Having said that, what does an MBA abroad give you? Greater exposure and sometimes slightly improved opportunities to immigrate and settle and so on. So you might consider that. Many people use this as a route to immigrate and and so on. But if you look at the not so good MBA colleges, and there are several who are just on paper, who have lousy faculty, and this is not just they're there in the US, in Europe, Australia or Canada, everywhere you find, there are really terrible schools which will recruit you and you won't learn anything. So I think when you choose, the question is not whether you want to go abroad or not. If you have money, of course, do go abroad. If you get in a top school, whether it's in India or abroad, I think you should accept it. If it's not a good school, I would prefer to stay in India and study and not go to some lousy place where you're not taught and your money is just wasted.
The next question from Jordan Thomas. As we all know, an IIM seat is really coveted in our country. However, when we take world university rankings, an IIM is comparatively ranked much lower than even universities where entry is much easier in foreign countries. Why is that so?
I see you students are really kind of done some deep research. I'm glad you're doing it. So, there are many things why this happens. For instance, some programs are rated only if they have an experiential, set of students with experience. There are many kinds of rating. You have to understand rating is a game, right? People do everything to stay on top of on top of the list. We don't pay so much attention to it, but across the world, it's very important. Some schools only recruit students with experience, and there is, of course, some weightage for that. In some cases, um, some schools, for instance, the rating things are, they look at starting salaries, they look at alumni feedback, and our alumni are sometimes not so much engaged with us. So there are many reasons why the rating would be lower compared to global rankings, and we have not really concentrated. If you have studied in an IISc or an IIT, you are probably comparable to the best in the world, I would think. And I can tell you with some confidence because I spent a little bit of time at MIT and at some little bit of time at the Harvard University, small amounts of time visiting, several months actually, and I've taught in some really good schools in various places. And I find that it is the big difference between there and here is that the students have a lot more exposure because of the opportunities out there, and the faculty and so on have a lot more access to companies, and if you're in a science institution, labs and so on. So we were always handicapped, but that is no longer the case. I think today, if you look at the new universities that are coming up, they're investing hugely in R&D. And if you look at the top institutions in India, their faculty are comparable to none. They're really very good. And this is not to boost our self-image. This is reality, having interacted with a lot of people, right? So, but we don't play the rating game very well, and therefore we tend to get rated low. Now, look at the other thing. One other criteria on which sometimes many are rated is international student composition. We don't have international students. We have a few, but it's a very different criteria. So therefore, again, our institutions will fall lower on that. So that when you look at a rating, look at the criteria, and then you decide why we go down or up. And also tell these guys also to look at selectivity ratio, and then ask them how many applications, how many are selected. Then of course our ratings will go very high. So, but we have to, I agree with you, globally reputation depends on what, and Financial Times or somebody else rates. We have to play that game a little better, but I feel we should not be driven by it fully. We have our own needs and requirements.
This is from a student. I have a passion for football, and parents are trying to push me inside the usual crowd. I accept that football in India is a risky career. What would you suggest, sir?
I hope his parents are not listening. I think sports offer a great career today. The problem is that the competitiveness in that sphere, the competition that in that area is really very high. And so for everyone that succeeds, many don't succeed. So my advice to the student would be, uh, at some point of time, you have to take a call. Passion should drive you, and that is what I said in the beginning. But I also think some realistic assessment of your own capabilities also must be made there. I'm passionate about singing, but the most I dare to sing is in the bathroom when nobody listens, really, because I don't have an innate talent for that. So I think somewhere we have to do a reality check, and if you're really good, then you should pursue it. And tell your parents you will pursue a career on sports management after that. It's a highly profitable, highly rewarding business,
Very
right?
true. Yes.
So one could do all of that.
Yeah. So one last question. Can we take MBA with any other art subjects such as music or dance?
Okay. Uh, After, so I didn't understand the question, Anuja. If it's after you're done music or arts, you can do MBA.
No,
Can you
can
do
we
MBA?
take MBA with any other art subject they're asking, such as music?
So not currently in our system. There are some new age schools, like I think it's called School of Inspired Leadership. I don't know all the details in Delhi, where they have some little bit of, they think about it differently. Unfortunately, we are all thinking very conventionally. So if you join an IIM, you will do by and large a conventional MBA. We do have some courses on creativity and stuff like that, but you would not be able to pursue, let's say, dance and then be graded on it simply because we don't have the competence to do that. But that does not mean you shouldn't pursue it. And you could pursue an MBA and pursue a career in dance, or in performing arts management. But the IIMs would not be the place for that. You have to find a place. And there are really good schools abroad. See, this is where you might want to go abroad, because there are really good schools abroad where you might actually pursue, both music, arts, and business.
Thank you so much, sir. On this note, we'll be any closing remarks for the students, sir? Would you like to?
No, I think I give so much advice, and
Yes.
my kids
Oh.
tell me don't advise, and I was not intending to give advice. I did, but I let me just reiterate the three things I said at the conclusion of my introduction: that be flexible, be ready to discover new things and be surprised by what the world is going to offer you. Um, this is really important. Don't get locked into anything. Follow your passion, and I think you will get rewarded. You simply, whatever you do,
Yeah.
the goal you must have is I will be the best in the world in that, and it will work. Mediocrity has no place in today's world. You have to be really exceptionally good. Then it doesn't matter what you do. You will enjoy life, and you'll have a fulfilling life, and financially it will be rewarding. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for inspiring our students. And thank you, students, for being a part of this seminar. And on this note, I would like to thank our sponsors who made this possible for us. Our gold sponsors are AMC Education Institute, Atria Institute of Technology, Insight IAS, and our silver sponsors are Sir M. Vishweswaraya Institute of Engineering, Hindustan Business School, KS Group of Institutions, Shaheen Group of Institutions, Bidar, Rajarajeshwari Group of Institutions, and Ramaya University. Thank you. We'll be having our next session at 11 o'clock. The subject is on medicine, and Dr. C.N. Manjunath will be with us. Thank you. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Anija, and goodbye to all of you. Stay safe and stay happy.
Thank you.